Okay, that's fine. Hopefully we can.
Yeah.
I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Philip. And this is Richmond Comics Weekend Update. I think issue 9 or something.
8, 9.
8, 9, something like that. And joining us today is Kane.
Hey, Kata.
Kata.
Kata, sorry.
It's okay. It happens.
No, I know. I know better, but I know better.
It's
sorry.
Okay. Sometimes, it's nerves when you're live.
Right. So, anyway, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Sure. My name is Kata Kane, and I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland. I am a comic book creator, artist, illustrator, graphic designer, art director. I do a little bit of everything. Yeah, and I am best known for doing like all ages middle reader YA titles. I do a web comic and self-publish a series called Alter Girl that is like a shoujo manga style comic with romance and drama and a little bit of supernatural element to it. Yes, thank you. And I also have been the artist on Anna and the Cosmic Race and GFF's Ghost Friends Forever. And I've also done anthologies here and there. Yes, thank you. So, yeah.
Very cool.
So how are you keeping your kiddos entertained during this quarantine?
Yes, so I have 2 little ones, just turned 4-year-old. His birthday actually happened right at the start of quarantine, so we didn't get to do his birthday party as planned, but a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, so that is pretty much what I've been doing during quarantine. People are like, oh, what have you been drawing? What are you working on? I'm like, I'm working on my kids. So pretty much we do circle time and story time, which is fun. And my son, who's 4, actually is getting into comics. My daughter's getting into comics a little bit too. Like she's picking up stuff and flipping through. So we do a little bit of reading and arts and crafts time. I try to get them to draw stuff, and but it's more like, hey, let's go outside and find rocks, and then we'll take the rocks home and paint them. I don't know, like just keeping them entertained.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like all this stuff that you do with the graphic design and art books. So how did you get into comics and the art world? What brought you into this world?
So for comics, I liked comics as long as I can remember. I feel like my first experience with comics was Sunday funnies, like newspaper comics. When my parents would be, reading the newspaper, I always wanted to read the comic section. And that was my first attempt at making my own comics. Is I would try to do like the kind of like 4-panel gag comics, like those Sunday funnies. But my 10-year-old humor wasn't the greatest, so they didn't make a lot of sense. But the comic that I used, what was that?
You're not going to publish them?
No. Well, so I was going to say, if I could find those notebooks, which I'm pretty sure I do have them still, it was like about like kids at school and just random stuff happening. But the comic strip was called Friends, and it was actually before Friends was like a TV show, because that's like how little I was, and like before that became like a show. So I was like, oh man, I couldn't even do that now. I can't have a comic called Friends. But that's kind of where I started, just doodling in notebooks. And it was around my tween years, like hitting middle school, that I got into Sailor Moon, the anime, and that just like blew my mind. I just loved it. I felt such a connection to it, which I think like a lot of like young girls, if it hit you at that time, it was just like the perfect thing. And then when I found out that was a comic and I discovered what manga was, I was like, oh, this is what I want. These are the kind of stories that are really like resonating with me. I want to do like a longer kind of story like this, like just the female characters, the romance and drama, because there were American comics I really liked, like X-Men, but it never like clicked with me the same way that manga did. So that's from there. I just was like tracing Sailor Moon from my manga books, and yeah.
So Sailor Moon's the inspiration for Altar Girl.
There's definitely Sailor Moon inspiration in there, like the whole like magical girl trope, and you know, like kind of like a destiny and love and romance and stuff. There's a lot, like Sailor Moon's always like my go-to, like that was my, like that was really what like kicked off like the inspiration in me. But there's definitely like a lot of different things in Alter Girl, that different anime and manga and even American comic like influences. Like I feel like there's a lot of Archie influence in there too. And like the school that they go to is called Saint Tail, and that's also an anime. It is called Saint Tail. So there's lots of little Easter eggs in there like that.
Gotcha. And we'll use this time. We're actually doing a giveaway today after we get off the air with you when we go into our normal show. So today, if you're watching, later on, we're going to give away the first 3 volumes of Alter Girl.
Awesome! That's so exciting.
So someone could be introduced to Alter Girl and then follow through with the webcomics.
Yes.
More of those coming out in print.
Yeah, actually, I had been hoping to do a Kickstarter campaign for book 4 this year. I kind of want to see how things go and see if I actually have the time to do that. But it is in the works. I've been working like in my spare time on like a new cover for it, and just trying to get, I guess, all my, you know, ducks in a row so that hopefully that can happen soon. And I just for the webcomic, you just held up the first 3 books, and that's everything that's, you know, in print. So the webcomic is actually about to start on book 6. So there's definitely plenty of content online too, if you get into those first 3 books and want to keep going. So it's been a labor of love. I've been doing Alter Girl for a very long time, but it's starting to get towards like the end, which is exciting, but also scary too. That I hope, you know, everyone likes it, and that the little seeds that I've planted will pay off, you know?
Right. So we know that you first started Alter Girl as a webcomic way back in 2002.
Yes.
And it had like a 2-year run, and then it wasn't until 2012 when you picked it back up again.
Yes.
Did it change a lot from what your initial thought of what it was going to be to what it is now?
I think so, because when I was first doing it in those early years, that's right when I was in like high school, college. And I was really flying by the seat of my pants. It was kind of like, I have this general idea. We're just going to see how it goes. And so there were new storylines that kind of popped up like that. I was like, yeah, okay, now they're going to do this. Sure. So yeah, it was a lot more laid back. And I stopped doing it because I was graduating from college, and I felt like I needed to focus on, you know, finding a career and just, you know, setting out and doing all that adult stuff. And so it was hard to find time to do my comics. But I couldn't stay away from comics, you know, I had to come back to it. So I really always wanted to finish the Alter Girl story, and having that time in between coming back to it in 2012, I was like, okay, I want to use what, you know, I kind of created on the fly back then and really make it like a real thought out story. So there's definitely an outline, there's things that happen for certain reasons, and like I said, I hope it all pays off in the end and it makes sense to readers who follow it. So it's definitely more organized this time around, and more professional, and that definitely comes from just the time and experience. And like I mentioned before, my old 9-to-5 was as a graphic designer, so skills like that actually really helped me in terms of like self-publishing the book, doing like the book layout and the interiors, and just having that knowledge to be like a one-stop shop to make it happen. So I'm grateful for the time in between, because this version definitely has a more professional background to it.
So putting out Alter Girl, so what's your schedule like? Like how do you, like you're putting stuff in print, and I know you think about that when you do your Kickstarter, but like what's your schedule like of when you put out a new piece for Alter Girl online, people can see? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I try to do the comic, I update pages on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I try to have like 2 pages a week. Um, and there's like 3 chapters to a book. That kind of helps me keep things organized, that I know, okay, I've got 3 chapters. It's going to be approximately 20 pages. So I end up by the end of it having like a 60 to 70 page book. And I really try to think in terms of, like scheduling out, like when I thumbnail a chapter, I make sure I have the whole thing thumbnailed before I start publishing, so that I don't get caught up in that, oh, I didn't have time, so I don't have the pages. So, which people are great and very understanding about, but I try to give myself breaks in between the chapters. So like this last book 5 that just finished in like March, I haven't updated since mid-March because all of this quarantine stuff has been happening. That definitely threw my schedule off, kind of having to redirect into, okay, my husband's teleworking and my kids are home, so I don't have the kind of time I did before to work on it. But yeah, I try to think long term, and not just go, okay, well, I'll just start posting what I have. I try to thumbnail first and then schedule that out, and hopefully, I hope, within the next month or 2, I can kind of start those regular updates again on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The other thing I've been doing is I have a Patreon, so I also offer early access to people who support me on Patreon, so they can see those thumbnails, they can see that process, and they also get access to the pages before anybody else. And they get 2 at a time instead of 1 at a time.
So how do you become a Patreon member?
So you can go on patreon.com /Kata Kane, KATAKANE, and you can follow me on there. And it's just $1 to get early access to Altar Girl. You also get sketches and doodles and blog posts and stuff, because I don't always like post a lot of my like thoughts and feelings like just on social media in general. I've never been like good at that, but on Patreon it's a little more comforting for me to like kind of talk about things, because the art's there and my words are there, and I have a lot of public posts too, so there's a lot of things that I try to share and do there. But there's illustrations, and I also just started doing a comics tier, so you can see, like I said, the process and download some PDFs too of things, not necessarily Altar Girl or Anna and the Cosmic Race or GFFs, like stuff I've done for different anthologies and things like that.
Yeah, we love the little sketch you did of Storm.
Yeah, you guys are my patrons, so that was fun. I had a goal for my first 20 patrons that I would do commissions, and I got to draw your cute dog Storm. Yep. And that was a lot of fun.
The matching one for Watson.
Ooh.
So Watson's jealous.
He has his own portrait, but we might just need a matching set.
Oh, nice. Yes. Well, I'm always happy to do that for you guys.
So do you feel like your webcomic readers also buy your books in print when they come out, or is it a completely different market?
You know what? I do. My webcomic readers are so supportive, and it's actually really amazing. I have a lot of readers who read it even way back in 2002, who were so excited when I brought it back, and like have stuck with me like all this time, which that's a long time at this point. We've kind of like grown together as, like creator and readers, and that's just so special. And I decided to publish the books because I felt like I had that support. It took some time, and like when I didn't publish the first book until about 2 years after doing the reboot of the webcomic, so it was like 2014 when I did book 1. So I didn't jump into it right out of the gate, but I definitely felt that support from the webcomic readers who were getting the content for free, but still wanted to support the book. And that also helped inspire me to just make the book as best as I could. I actually went over pages and redrew stuff and like spruced up the art and, made it feel like it was something really special. And there's definitely a different audience too that might not necessarily find me online, but they come see me at conventions or at library shows, and they get to see the book. And on the opposite side of that, I have people who've met me and then start following the webcomic because they bought the book from me, and they're happy to jump on for the next Kickstarter. They're like, okay, I got the first 3 books. Now I get to be a part of book 4 and have my name in the credits. Or like the last book I did a reward where you got to be drawn into the comic at the school dance, which was in book 5. So for those people, when book 5 is published, they're going to actually be in the book. So that's really cool too.
Very cool. So when you're doing, like, you talk about doing shows, I know like when you do shows, you do like commission sketches and things like that. So what, for you, is there a big difference for when you sit down and do your pencil sketches for when you sit down and do your digital art, for like the books and things like that? Is there a big difference for you on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always the difference between traditional and digital. I've always kind of done a combination of the two, and that's kind of kept me, healthy in both categories. But yeah, doing commissions at a show and kind of having that time limit too, of like, well, the show, is this many hours a day. I said I'd get it done by the end of the day, and kind of working a little more quickly to do stuff is a lot of fun, actually, to like remind myself that I can do that. Because sometimes with digital, it's like, well, I'm working on it, I'll come back to it, and it's very piecemeal, especially like working on a comic layout. But I always get really cool ideas from people with commissions at shows too, like characters I've never heard of before, or just like team ups that I would never have thought of. And original characters, like I always love drawing people's original characters. So yeah, there's definitely a difference there. Cause you gotta get it right with that commission. You can't hit Control-Z. And there's definitely stuff I do digitally that I can do a little more loosely, and then, crop it and refine it and fix it, fix it in post kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since all the conventions are being canceled because of this, are you doing anything new and different to try to promote your books that you haven't done before?
So within this, kind of almost 2 months at this point in time, I did not have any shows scheduled. So thankfully this was a year where I kind of like took a step back. Other than I wanted to do appearances, I wanted to come see you guys at the store. That was going to happen this year.
Yep.
We were talking about that before we went live, that it was either going to be March or May, and it's like, all right, well, there goes spring.
There goes that, yeah.
But yesterday, actually, I participated in a virtual con. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm in Baltimore, so I helped run a group called Be More Into Comics, and it's just a group of local Baltimore creators, writers, artists, like comic book fans too. And we would put on local shows. So we actually had a local show at a brewery scheduled for yesterday. Obviously that got canceled weeks ago. But the people who have taken it over did a great job, and they made this really cool live stream virtual con. And I couldn't be there the whole time because I still have my 2 little ones, running around. But I was able to come in at the end of the day and do a little interview and talk to them. And I got to watch one of our other friends do a live draw. So that's like the only thing I've really done during this time that's different, that I've never done like a virtual con before. So.
Very cool. So you had mentioned a little earlier that you were like closing in on the end of Altar Girl. So do you have your next concept already thought out, or that that's too far away to focus on that yet?
Yeah, there's a lot of like little stories that I want to do. That I'm kind of hoping I can work on in tandem with Altar Girl. Altar Girl has been such like a long labor of love that I definitely feel like once that has ended, I don't want to jump immediately into another like long kind of like saga. And a lot of people, you know, give the advice that if you're starting a webcomic, like don't do this really long thing, like try to make it shorter so you can feel like, okay, I did the thing, I accomplished it. And I've been doing this for a long time. So I am hoping that, yeah, I can take a little breather in between that. But I do have some short story ideas that I'd like to do, like more self-contained things.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Can't wait.
Yep.
So is On and the Cosmic Grace Volume 2 coming out anytime?
You know what? I hope so. I get asked that question at conventions a lot. You know, I'm the artist on that, and the writer is Amy Chu, and we have talked about trying to find like a new home for it, like with a new publisher. So if anybody watching is a publisher and is interested in volume 2, I know that Amy and I both want to continue it. So.
And the same can be said for volume 3 of this. Is this going to continue? Have you and Monica talked about that?
Yeah, I like for both those series, I feel bad saying it, but I'm like, talk to the writers.
You're the artist, so you might know if they're working on the story or not.
Yeah, there's definitely, I was going to say both of them are awesome. I had a great time working with Amy on Cosmic Race and a great time working with Monica on GFFs. And they're both super talented creators. And I know that they have lots of projects and things that they've been working on too. So there's good content from them too. But I hope that, you know, we can come back to these stories because I really love all the characters in both titles. They're a lot of fun to draw.
I love GFF stuff.
GFFs, yeah. I really like that one. Monica and I are co-creators, so it was a lot of fun to like bounce ideas back and forth about that. And they're like my favorite characters because I really helped create like those characters and like put them in the world that Monica had created of Spectreville, and like the ghosts are just like, yeah, we see them in this town, everybody accepts it. Like it's a normal way of life. So it was really fun to make characters in like a ghost hunting family. Yeah, those are my favorite characters for sure.
Because Monica was from Baltimore too, right? She lived up for a while, but I think she's moved away now.
Yeah, which is really funny because we were approached separately about pitching a project. And so I was approached as an artist and she kind of went in as a writer. And so I was like, yeah, like pair me with somebody, I'm ready to work on something. And they were like, well, let's introduce you to Monica. And I'm like, oh, I just saw her last week. Like, we know each other. Let me introduce you to her. Like, so that was like a happy circumstance. And it was a lot of fun. You know, when she was living in Baltimore, we would meet at coffee shops and bring our notepads and laptops and sketchbooks. And so that was a really fun experience to have like the in-person back and forth rather than just, you know, through emails or Skype calls or whatever. So, which is kind of like what you got to do right now, regardless of the situation. So.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much everything is Zoom
Yeah.
at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
So I know, guess it was earlier this year. This whole pandemic thing is my timeline is completely off. But I know that, you know, you were actually like an art director on Mary Shelley's Present.
Yeah.
Mara Press. So how was that process working through that whole book?
So that was I've really enjoyed being an art director with Chimera Press. I work on Mary Shelley Presents and I work on Dragons by the Yard too. So I do 2 titles with them. And yeah, the Mary Shelley Presents Kickstarter kind of happened like right as the pandemic was kicking off. So there was definitely some concern there. I didn't run the campaign. I just helped promote it. And, you know, the Debbie, who's the owner, was really like the one, you know, doing the Kickstarter. But it got successfully funded and people were really excited about it. So I'm really glad that worked out because the trade paperback is going to collect the 4 issues that we did. And it's such a cool concept because it's these short stories that are actually written by women horror writers of the past who have kind of been forgotten. And so the concept is that Mary Shelley's kind of like your narrator and, introduces these different works and these women. And then we get to see through the art, a retelling of these real horror stories from the past. So, and Amelia Wu is the artist, and she's just incredible. Her art makes it really come to life. And there's definitely parts where you're like, ooh, that is spooky,
Right.
Yeah. So it's been fun being the art director and just keeping the team together and keeping people on task and making sure that, certain things kind of come together in the way that they're meant to. Cause sometimes it's like, the writer, who's Nancy Holder, who is very talented and great. And she's actually written some stuff for like Buffy and, which is very cool. Taking her script and bringing it to life and making sure that, the visual cues are there. So it's kind of like, it's like being an editor, but like with a real focus on the art.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we promised we would get you out of here in a half hour for the kiddos and all that. So basically, so one other question we have for you. So like, as far as everything you're doing for the books and all that, what are some of the books that you enjoy reading? Or is it not really books, it's other hobbies that you do? Like
what kind of comics am I reading in quarantine, or?
Or anytime. If you're not in quarantine, or what is usually your go-to books to just to go sit down and enjoy?
Besides Sailor Moon, yeah. My favorite mangaka, like manga creator, is Rumiko Takahashi, and she's best known for Inuyasha. But the series that I really love that she did was Ranma One Half. I feel like that's a huge influence on me. It's just a great combination of action and humor and romance and drama, and it's one of my favorites. So that's always a fun one to go to. And I mentioned Inuyasha too is another great title. It's the most well-known. The anime was like a huge hit. And it's been funny, actually. My son has been pulling that one off the shelf for whatever reason. So there's some stuff that's like, that might be a little scary, or but I've been able to find some stories in there that I've been able to read to him, and sometimes he'll read me comics too, and he just is making it up, based on the pictures. So that's been fun. I've also been reading Making Friends by Kristen Gudsnuck. Is a fun, like, middle reader title. And the concept is that the main character has a magical sketchbook. What she draws in it comes to life. So the first thing she draws is like the disembodied head of Prince Neptune, and it's definitely a nod to Sailor Moon in there. So Kristen did a webcomic called Hench Girl, and I do Alter Girl. So we met at a convention, and then I think it was at Baltimore Comic Con. We asked to sit next to each other so we could have Hench Girl and Alter Girl together. That was like, what?
Do a team up.
Yes, yeah. It was a while ago, but yeah, so I'm finally getting around to reading that one now. I don't know if you can hear.
Those are both good choices.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and I just I read Prince and the Dressmaker recently too, because that one came out a couple years ago at this point, but I hadn't had a chance to read it. And I got it from the library, and then all this happened, so I still have it. I've had it for like 2 months, but the library's like, whatever books you guys have, just keep them for now. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, I got a copy of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are all good books. I've enjoyed all of those.
Yeah.
That's very cool. All right. Well, once again, we said we'd get you out of here in half an hour, so.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard the kids running like in the background just now. I'm like, pumpkin time.
I figured they would make a special appearance, but
I think they ran upstairs. I think Ned herded them up the stairs. So.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope we get to see each other in person, either at a convention or at your shop. If not, end of 2020. 2021.
2021, yeah. We'll definitely try to get you back down here, or get you down here.
Yes,
for
yes.
2021. We're ready. We
Yes.
just have to deal with a pandemic now. So.
Yes, I'm so excited to see the new location. It looks great. Even via Zoom, it looks awesome.
All right. Thank you very much. Good
Thanks,
talking
guys.
to you. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All righty. Whoa, that's a big fellow face on the on the Zoom. Wow. Are you gonna start dancing?
Please don't knock it.
Please don't, not yet. No, we're good.